Next up for the S&P 500, it could be the all-time high. So how realistic that is? Let's go take a look. And look at this monthly candle for the S&P 500. And it's only a little bit over 2% from its all-time high. So I wouldn't be surprised to see the all-time high get tested. And after 4 consecutive down weeks, the S&P 500 finally got an up week and it closed up 3.93% and gained over 210 points. Now the NASDAQ is a little bit away from the all-time high. It's about 5%, a little bit over, close to 5.5% from its all-time high. But again, looking at this monthly candle, it is one heck of a doji hammer with a long wick. So that is definitely something to keep an eye on. And also the NASDAQ 100 had another big week. It was up 5.28% and gained almost 1,000 points, 995.42. Looking at this chart of the indexes on a closing basis, look at here at the New York Stock Exchange Composite. It is less than 30 points from closing with a new all-time closing high. So wouldn't be surprised to see that happening maybe in the coming week. And that is an indication that there is a broad market internal strength that is pushing these index higher. Although we are looking at some weakness from the technology-oriented stock, and also the transportation is still kind of weak. But we see that the industrial is kind of leveling off. And likewise, the S&P 500 is also coming up. So we could see that there is a little bit of a rotation from the growth-oriented back to the value-oriented stock. And that's one of the reasons probably we are looking at the New York Stock Exchange Composite getting close back to its all-time closing high. So looking at the sentiment chart here, the VIX came back down and closed at 14.8 on Friday. But also look at the put-call ratio. It is back below 0.75. So obviously the market participants are starting to, putting some risk back on. And it closed on Friday at 0.699. And looking at the up-down volume ratio of the New York Stock Exchange, although we did not see too much of a strength on Friday and Wednesday, but Tuesday and Thursday, we did see a strong buying pressure and also broad-based market participation based on the advance and decline. In the new high, new low, we did see the number of new high came up, while the number of new low in the New York Stock Exchange came down. Look, on Friday, it's only 18 stock made new 52-week low, while there were 125 stock made new 52-week high. And we see the new high, new low. The new high outnumbered the new low by 107 on Friday. So it is getting back to that 100 level, which is a good sign for the New York Stock Exchange. And here we see that the cumulative AD line is also showing a little bit of a positive divergence here. You see the New York Stock Exchange cumulative AD is actually at a new high, while the S&P 500 still a little distant from its all-time high. So again, we basically are looking for the S&P 500 to hit a new all-time high, or the Dow Jones Industrial to hit a new all-time high in the near term. And for the NASDAQ, the up-down volume ratio was pretty strong as well on Tuesday and Thursday. Even today is not too bad. It's 2-to-1 in favor of the up volume. And also the AD line show broad market participation. And for a change, we actually see the number of stock make new 52-week high outnumber the number of stock make 52-week low in the NASDAQ market on Friday. You see that for a while it's been all dominated by more stock making new 52-week low than 52-week high. And also we see that it came back above the 100 level. The number of stock make new 52-week high on Friday was actually 122 stock make new 52-week high, while there's only 92 make new 52-week low. But the key thing to watch here is that the number of stock making new 52-week low is actually declining. Now for the NASDAQ, the AD line is show still showing a little bit of a negative divergence. So it's not as strong as the New York Stock Exchange. And also that's the reason why we're seeing it's a little bit more distant away from the all-time high. It wouldn't surprise me if we did not see the NASDAQ 100 to hit a new all-time high, while the SP 500, the Dow Jones Industrial, makes an new all-time high. So with the sentiment turning a little bit more positive, the market participant is less fearful now and start putting back on some risk. And also the internal is also showing a little bit more strength. And right now, and with the S&P 500, it's only a couple percentage point from the all-time high. So will we see the all-time high relatively soon, or will we see a little bit more pullback before it come back up and make this all-time high? Let's go and take a look at the price action of the some of the sector and also the SPY and the QQQ and see what we could expect in the near term. Let's take a look at some of the sectors, starting with the technology sector, XLK. You can see on XLK, it came up to this low volume node here. Okay, so for the coming week, we're going to see would it be able to continue to push higher to make a more solid higher high, because it took out this high here this Friday. So it put in a higher high, because before we're looking at a lower high, lower low, and right now we got a higher high. So in the coming week, we'll watch this 221.83 area to see would it be able to push up to this high volume node, and then maybe possibly come back and back test this area here, this breakout level here, before it push up to a higher high. Now, notice that it's already up 7 consecutive days. The last time we saw this is basically this 8 consecutive day. So we could see another day of upward price movement before it pulls back. But don't be surprised to see that the price come back down and possibly test this high volume node here at 215.23 and then push back up to put in a higher low and then put in another higher high to try to come up to this gap fill area. So those are a couple of the possible scenarios to keep an eye on for the coming week on the XLK. The key thing is to watch this level here, this 221.83. Now let's take a look at the consumer discretionary. On this week, we got some good retail sales number on Thursday, and that's one of the catalysts that helped push the market up on Thursday, along with some better than expected jobless number. So for the consumer discretionary, we're going to be watched for the coming week to see what it continue to push above this trend line and come up to this volume edge here near the 186.61. Now here's the high, the pivot high that you need to take out in order to put in a higher high. So there's still a little bit distant away, and that would be somewhere around 189. So again, we're basically looking to see would it be able to come up to this 186.61 for the coming week, or would it be get rejected from this trend line and come back down to this HVN near this 180 area here and try to put in a little bit of a higher low comparing to this low here, then pushes up again and take out this 186.61. So the key things to watch for the coming week is this trend line to see would it be able to break above this trend line or get rejected and pushed back from this trend line here. Now let's take a look at XLK. Ever since this meltdown a couple Monday ago, and came down to this HVN, this high volume node, and got a nice bounce back up. And right now it's getting close to its all-time high near 44.11. So I wouldn't be surprised in the coming week to see the financial come up and take out the all-time high. Now, if it doesn't and it pull back, then I'd probably be looking at this LVN here at 42.65 to see would it be able to give us a little bit of a buying opportunity to buy it back and play it back up to this all-time high, because this is a double top all-time high here. And looking at the semiconductor sector is pretty much mimic the XLK, the technology sector. See, here's the pivot high here, and just a little bit shy from that pivot high this week. It hasn't made it yet. So keep an eye on this level here. If we could get above this little volume dent here, then push up to this HVN near the 255.65, then that will definitely give us a higher high, because right now it's coming down with a lower high. So if it push above this pivot high, then it will give us a higher high. Then we could see would it pull back and try to test either this level here or this HVN at 241.88 and put in a higher low before it pushes back up and try to come up and fill this gap. Now, the other scenario that we'll be looking at is if it is unable to continue to push up to this HVN, then we'd be watching for it come back down to this level here, this volume dent here, to see would it be able to find support and then pushes back up to put in a higher high, higher low. So the key thing to watch for the coming week is basically this level here, at this level at 247.74, 247.75 area. And for crude oil, we're looking at this USO here. We see that, came up and put in a little bit of a higher high and then pulled back now to this HVN near 76.62. So for the coming week, we're going to see would it be able to come back up to this trend line here and push above this 78.30, this volume dent here, basically breaking above this trend line and push up to this 79.52 area. So basically looking for a higher low, higher high, and breaking out of this descending trend line. Now, if it doesn't, let's say it continue to push down, then we'd be watching this 74 area here, this volume dent, to see would it be able to provide support and then pushes back up to this high volume node here at 76.62. So that's the scenario that we'll be watching for the coming week for oil. And looking at the long-term bond TLT here, we see that the TLT came up almost to the 100 level a couple Mondays ago. And right now it's kind of pulled back and encountered a little bit of a rejection at this LVN somewhere near the 97.72. So for the coming week, we're going to see would it be able to push above this LVN and move back up to this LVN near the 100.57. So basically come up to this high here. So that's basically what we're looking for on the TLT for the coming week. Now, if it doesn't, if it's unable to get above this LVN, this 97.72, then we'd be looking for it to possibly pull back into this area here, possibly between this 94 and 95 level. Now, just a brief word on gold. We see that gold is breaking out to all-time high here. And right now, it's basically got a major move based on this particular consolidation area that it's been consolidating for a while before it pushes up. And so I'm looking at somewhere around 2586 or 2600 area on this major move from this consolidation area. Now, the support level is probably somewhere around this 2450 area. So if we see any type of pullback on gold, then this would be the area that I'd be keeping an eye on. Now let's take a look at the indexes, starting with the E-mini S&P 500 future, the ES. Looking at this volume profile only chart here, we see that the price had come up to this balance area and sitting at the upper edge. So for the coming week, will it be able to move up into this area here, this 5650 area, or would it come back and retrace back down to this 5450 and even possibly come down here into testing the upper edge of this balance area? And the reason why I'm watching this here is because of the poor low. And if we take a look at this market profile chart here, we see that there is this poor low here that still need to be resolved. And also yesterday's poor low is still need to be resolved, and along with some single prints. So if the E-mini S&P 500 or the S&P 500 decides to pull back next week, we could see this gap fill here and this poor low get resolved and possibly come down to this poor low here and get a test of this balance area here before it possibly make a little bit of a bounce back up. If it decide to just continue to move up, then here we have a poor high that also need to be resolved along with some single prints here. And that would be resolved as it come up and try to put in an all-time high, a new all-time high. And if we look at this daily chart of the ES, we see that the week, it actually exceeded the upper range and it closed above this HVN. See that right now it's sitting at 55.80. Now there is a HVN up here, this high volume node at 56.45. So we could see the possibility of this thing come up next week to test this 56.45.25 before it pulls back and possibly come back and test this high volume node at 55.32.50. Now there's that possibility. Remember we were talking about coming back in and filling in those, resolving those poor low. So we could see it come back down and try to get down to this LVN here, right near the 53.86.25. And here's what the market is pricing in for the coming week. The upper range is between 56.81.25 and 56.47.50, and the lower range is between 54.97.25 and 54.80. So we'll see if the price could push up to this high volume node and get up to the the upper edge. I mean the upper range of this weekly range, or would it pull back and on its way down, we probably will take out this lower range of the weekly expected move and come down and possibly work itself down to this low volume node here at the 53.86.25. So this is where the poor low is, and also there's another poor low down here at the 54.1 area. So those are the area that we have to keep an eye on for the coming week. Because this right here, I have the extended hour price on there. And if we go to the regular hours, just the RTX session, then you can see where the poor low is sitting. So this is the poor low that we want to take out, and also this poor low here to get resolved in the coming week if we see a pullback. And for the SPY, we saw it came up here and take out this pivot high. So basically put in a slight higher high here because this is 55.01. So that is higher than this this level here, and this level is 554.87. So yeah, so we claim this trend line and broke out of this descending trend line here. So for the coming week, we basically to see would it be able to come up and fill this gap here and possibly come up and test the all-time high. And the market is pricing in the upper range for the coming week at 562.70 and 561.30, and the lower range between 547.30 and 545. So we'll see would it be able to come up and take out this upper range and essentially coming up toward the all-time high and possibly put in a new all-time high. Or would it get rejected from this high volume edge here and this high volume node and pushes back and fill in this gap by coming down to this lower range and possibly come down to test this LVN. Now let's take a look at the NQ, the E-mini NASDAQ 100 future here. And we see that the NQ is getting close to this LVN here near the 19,726. So we're going to see would it come up here and get rejected and push back down to this HVN near the 19,000 level, then see a bounce back up into this 20,000 area. So that will put in a higher high, a higher low. Now, if it continue to push above this LVN, then we'd be looking at this HVN as a potential resistance to see would it come back down, then push up into this 20,281 within this gap here for the coming week. Now, if it pulls back, we'd be looking for this gap fill here, come down to this HVN near 19,000, and then possibly work itself down to this HVN near 18,297 area here, this high volume node. So for the QQQ, the market is pricing in a upper range between 486.50 and 484.10, and the lower range is between 466 and 463.50. What we will be watching for the coming week is to see would it be able to break this trend line, come up to this HVN near the 480.60, and possibly come up to this upper range here, and see would it be able to take out this upper range and eventually come up to this 490 near this gap area here. Now, if it unable to break above this trend line, then we'll be looking for it to come back down to this low volume edge here near the the 468.40, and possibly come down and fill this gap by tagging the lower range of the weekly expected move, and also come down to this high volume node at 462.91, then see when we get a bounce back up and basically take out the this pivot high and put in a higher high and a higher low, then we see would it be able to continue to work itself back up to this low volume zone here near the 490 area. Now the worst case scenario is that it breaks down, come down to this LVN, unable to hold, then we're basically looking at what to possibly come down to this high volume node here near the 238, 237 level. So in summary, the S&P 500 is only slightly more than 2% from its all-time high here. And with the sentiment and also the internal gaining some strength here, wouldn't be surprised to see the S&P 500, the Dow Jones Industrial, to put in a new all-time high in the coming weeks. Maybe not next week, but in the coming weeks, next couple of weeks or so, since the S&P 500 been up 7 consecutive days already. So wouldn't be surprised to see just a slight pullback and possibly come down and fill in some of the gap before and make another push toward the all-time high. So if you like this video, be sure to smash the like and help promote this video. And if you are new to this channel, click to subscribe to help support this channel. And if you'd like to see some additional content from me, then go check out my newsletter at Substack. The link is in the description below, and it is smtraderca.substack.com. Thank you for watching, and good luck on your trading.